Hello everybody, this is Silver, and today we're going to do a Sanguine Depths plus 18 walkthrough that I did with some guildmates. We'll mainly be focusing on pulls, defensives that I use, and general flow of the dungeon throughout this, and we'll also talk about certain dungeon mechanics. This is for 9.1.5. If you're watching this during 9.2, some of the pulls may still apply, but we'll have a totally different affix. We go from Tormented to Encrypted, so I should have some different videos out on that. So right off the beginning, we're going to do a standard double pull here. Some people do a triple pull, plus 18. I feel comfortable with a double pull. I'm running Kyrian Covenant for this dungeon with Mykonos Soulbind. It gives my Divine Toll essentially a 40-second cooldown, and it's your highest damage ability, so I highly recommend it. You're going to want to run with a Venthyr in this dungeon. You know, every dungeon gets a specific dungeon buff for specific covenants. Unfortunately, the rogue here is Venthyr. If we did not have a Venthyr, I would probably run Venthyr. Especially in Tyrannical weeks, a Venthyr is actually very good for protection paladins against a single target. So it helps you get the bosses down if your group is lacking boss damage. And then these lanterns, the one we just opened, up in the right hand corner you'll see a little red guy with a number 7 on him. We have 7 stacks of a buff, and that's a 5% damage buff, so 7 stacks, so we have 35% extra damage right now. You can get up to a max of 10 stacks for 50% extra damage. So what you do is you activate the lantern, you kill the mobs in the activation zone, it's a big red zone, and then you get the buff. And there's 5 of these lanterns throughout the dungeon. So the first pull is pretty standard, just kite it around a circle in the lantern. This one you need to be careful with. You see those red circles on the ground, those are traps. And you see right there, the Mist Dancer leaves behind swords. And every time he activates the sword, a red beam coming straight out from him, like a sword thrust, does damage. Anyone standing in it will get hurt. And then every extra time he activates it, his old sword thrust will also activate. So you need to keep the sword thrusts in one direction so your melee can easily stay out of them, and also try to keep the traps over on one side if you can. So just help your team out. So because we have that damage buff, I try to pull the Tormentor as soon as possible. Probably could have pulled him earlier too. The Brute, he just has a charge effect you got to watch out for. The tick that we just killed we'll go through on the next pack. Varuth is one of the Tormented bosses for 9.1.5. 2 mechanics. You need to stack Wave of Terror right there, stack on one of your teammates so you don't get feared. And then that right there is his second mechanic, Carnage. He's going to focus somebody, charge to them, do a large amount of damage, plus apply a bleed. You do not want to be in that circle because you will also get the bleed. Now, Protection Paladin, what we can do is we can Blessing of Protection somebody and prevent the damage and prevent the bleed. I did not do it in this, so shame on me, but I highly recommend it, especially if it's like your healer, or, well, it's normally going to be a squishy. He's not going to target you. So, but there's obviously certain classes that are tankier than others. So after that, you want to do a skip here. You don't need any of this trash for count. You're going to get plenty of it later. You don't need to invis or anything. You just have to wait till the Brute pats to the other side, and you can run through that, and then you get to the Gluttonous Tick pack. So this is bursting week. The famished ticks do not apply a stack of bursting. Bursting is when a mob dies, you're going to get a small damage over time, but it does stack. So if you kill 3 at the same time, you're going to get 3 stacks of it. If you kill 5, that's a lot of damage for your healer to heal. The one thing with the Gluttonous Ticks is they do have a cast that you want to interrupt. The longer he engorges on someone, he builds up essentially an explosion. So when he dies, he will do damage. The longer he engorges, the more damage he will do upon death. So if you don't get those interrupts and you kill a couple of them at the same time, your group is going to get a lot of damage, and you're especially going to feel it in fortified weeks. Like I said, this is a Tyrannical week, so you're going to see us going through the trash pretty fast. Also have an excellent group of guildmates here, and makes running dungeons a lot of fun. So this is just ticks and the Brute. The Brute and the Gluttonous Ticks will apply bursting stacks. This pack's pretty easy, you don't need to worry about it. So, all right, going into the first boss, you're gonna pop Lust on pull down. Cool. sorry, Lust on Pull. And then you're, as a Paladin, Avenger's Wings. Hopefully you have your Divine Toll up for extra damage. Get as many Hammers of the Righteous in as you can. Hammer of Wrath. Make sure that interrupt right there, it's very similar to the Gluttonous Tick. The longer it goes off, the more damage it's going to deal, so you want to hit that interrupt immediately if you can. That Juggernaut Rush right there, he's going to focus somebody. You want to be, and he'll spread the damage to whoever he runs through, so you want to try to be between the boss and your teammate that gets focused. He does a Headbutt, which is his tank smash ability, essentially. You want to make sure you can use a defensive for that, or you have an Empowered Word of Glory for right after, so you can heal yourself back up to full. And then the Severing Smash is his last mechanic that he did. Where everywhere anyone's at, he'll smash down a ball. Whenever that ball is collected, it will do AoE damage to the group. So what you want to do as a tank, and I do not manage it well here. You kind of want to, I should have pulled him back to the middle and run back further for the Severing Smash to let the balls spread out. Makes it easier to collect them in a just an orderly fashion. You can see every time we hit a ball, you'll see the whole group get a AoE damage, and it helps the healer out. So I definitely should have pulled him out, but it's something to learn from in the future. And one of the best things about playing Mythic Dungeons is, I think, reviewing your material, learning from your mistakes, and just having fun with friends. So you see right there, that was massive. Unfortunately, we lost a couple people. I'm trying to off heal as much as I can with Word of Glory, but I definitely mismanaged that. So it's something to improve on the future. So another Severing Smash here. He is getting low, not there yet, but that's basically all the mechanics of this fight. It's a hard fight on Tyrannical weeks. And like I said, I need to use the whole width of the whole length of the boss area pretty much to manage the Severing Smash more. So there again, you get in between you and the person that's targeted for that. Make sure you interrupt that Hungering Drain immediately. This is a really good group. You can see everyone's using your interrupts. If you look on the right hand side, so I do mouse over macros for everything. Blessing of Protection, Blessing of Sacrifice, Blessing of Freedom, my Word of Glory heal, my Flash of Light heal, Lay on Hands, and then I can just click their bar there over on the right. You see Group 1. I can just click with a certain mouse click combination, and it applies the spell, so I don't have to move over from my target or try to target one of my teammates. Also, you'll see below that interrupts. When I'm in a guild group here, so we're having comms. It's not as people can tell me when they have the interrupts up, but if you're pugging, it's very important to keep track of interrupts and know if you have them or not. Fortunately, as a Paladin, you have a lot of interrupts, so it's a great pug-friendly tank. You can take care of a lot of the interrupts. So the two casts here, they cast their bolt and then they cast suppression. You definitely want to get the suppression if you can. That will silence the person that is cast on for a couple of seconds. So that's the high priority. And then the Dark Lash, you interrupt as much as you can there. Divine Toll is amazing. It's going to send out 5 interrupts. It's going to do a ton of AoE damage. So I like to pull these two packs together because I hate doing solo packs. Just feels very inefficient. Make sure you have aggro on the sprites though, because if your team's going to want to, DPS them down as they're coming over, and they could pull aggro from you, and you obviously don't want that to happen. So Chamber Sentinel, Craigie Fracture, just watch your feet. And then the main thing here is interrupt his Stoneborn thing, which makes him tankier, and you'll be good though. So, all right, so the first Tormentor was Varuth. The second one is Sagadon. Now, they change positions every 2 weeks, I believe, so you just need to make sure, download Mythic Dungeon Tools. It'll tell you exactly what you need to know about all the Tormentors and where they are for the weeks. Sagadon gives you a defensive ability after you kill him, defensive anima power, so in a lot of fortified weeks, you actually skip him. What that does is, at the end of the fortified week, at the end, the boss will get a 50% physical damage buff, but most bosses are just hitting the tank with physical damage, and if it's a fortified week, you can probably deal with it. So I always normally go for the shield. Sometimes it's good to get the magic damage for extra 15% damage reduction. So, all right, so this Grand Oppressor pack, you're going to see we're going to fight 3 of these in a row. The Wicked Oppressors will cast Rack Soul, and then they'll cast the suppression ability. You want to make sure you try to interrupt the suppression ability, because it will go on your casters, and right there, Curse of Suppression, and it will silence them. The Overseer should be the focus, though. They cast Dread Bindings, which for you have to do nothing. You can just Blessing of Freedom yourself. Every time it's cast, it will remove the bindings, and you won't take any damage. Everyone else will need to outrange the bindings. I think it's like 30 yards. So you're going to fight 3 of these packs in a row, so you'll see the Lantern there. We're not opening the Lantern yet. I recommend, and I mean, everyone might do it different. There's probably some high key runners that recommend something different for this. So, take me. I run basically 15 to, I'm trying to get into 20s essentially. But I recommend not popping it right now, and you'll see why in a minute. We're going to do a double pull with the Tormentor. So, with these mobs and a lot of mobs in the dungeons, it's if you hit the interrupts, you're just saving health. Which is in the end making you tankier, right? So part of Paladin's kit is interrupting. You have Avenger Shield, you have Divine Toll, which sends out 5 Avenger Shields. You have Rebuke, which is your interrupt. You have your stun. Then you have Blinding Light, which is an AoE interrupt. You'll see I use from time to time. So overall, you have a lot of tools in place to handle all the interrupts yourself. It's extremely important in this dungeon and Spires with the Goliaths. You can handle all the Goliath kicks. So right here, I asked the Rogue to open the Lantern so we can start getting stacks. So you'll see as these die, we just got our first stack of the 5% damage buff. And then right here we get 2 and 3. So now we have 15% damage. I'm also going to pull this Acolyte pack into the Lantern. So you're going to want to tell your team the line of sight. Get them into the Lantern zone. And then you pop out. Hopefully you have Divine Toll up. It'll interrupt everybody. Put them in a nice, easy position. Group them up for your team. That's one thing Paladins are lacking, unfortunately, is a movement displacement ability. But we have a lot of utility in our kit to make up for it. So you can see our stacks going up here. We're up to 8 stacks now. So that's 40% damage buff. We're going to kill these last 2 mobs, probably put us up to 10 stacks, which is the max, for 2 minutes. And now we have a 50% damage buff. So this next pull is super easy with that buff. So coming in here and you're doing Arcolith and this Custodian pack. So the Custodian has a whirlwind, a frontal whirlwind you need to watch out for. And then Arcolith has an Incinerate that you have to kick. If you do not kick, it will do massive AoE damage to the entire team, and anything higher than a 20 you would definitely wipe if that went off. So and then he leaves flame patches on the floor. He's going to target ranged members of your group. They need to move out of the way. They will stay on the ground afterwards. You just need to make sure you're not getting them. So there's the Sweeping Slash, the Custodian's Whirlwind. But as you can see with our 50% damage buff, you see we got 20 seconds left. That pull was super easy. Without it, and on a fortified week, could be pretty tricky. So one of the nicest things about running with guildies or people that you run with more often is you get a feel for their DPS and their interrupts and their damage and what kind of utility they use, and makes life a lot easier. But yeah, I would recommend doing that pull if you can. So there are 2 lanterns in this hallway that we're going to utilize. I'm pulling this first pack back to this lantern. As you can see, the Chamber Sentinel activated. That is a random. He could be there. He might not be there. The Depths Warden, Barbed Shackles, right there, is a high priority interrupt. It will, I believe, go on 1 or 2 of your members and just wreck them as far as damage goes. So definitely need to try and interrupt that And then the scribes, it's just hard CC interrupts for them. So, but as you can see, we popped the lantern here. We're only going to get 4 stacks. Obviously, it's not ideal, and the top push teams really know how to manage these lanterns. So, if you looking for better lantern management, I highly recommend doing it on YouTube, finding some high keys on Sanguine Depths and seeing how they manage the lanterns. Could definitely save you some time, because you definitely want to have some lantern stacks for the second boss. Second boss is tough, and any extra damage buff is just going to help your group take them down. The trash in this hallway, if you're doing the small pulls here, it's not too hard. Interrupt where you can. The scribes, again, they don't have any hard interrupts. So like you saw, I went into that little corner. That was because the scribes, I don't have a movement displacement ability. I can't get them to come to me. I had to line of sight them in order to get them to come to me. So you'll probably see me do that a couple of times. They don't do any melee, unfortunately. They have this ranged cast through research. So the Remnant of Furies, interrupt them. I think they'll leave a patch on the ground if you don't. Right there, you can just see every now and then I'm off healing. If you have a empowered Word of Glory proc, which you get from using your Shield of the Righteous 4 times, then and you're full health, then help the healer out, help your teammates out. Throw it on a low health party member. Right here, we dropped our damage buff. We just passed the lantern. And some people might just grab that lantern and keep using the buff down the hall. It might be faster, but on Tyrannical weeks, I enjoy having the lantern the damage buff for the boss. Even if it's only like, I don't know, 4 stacks, it's still 20% damage buff, which just helps you burn through the boss. And this boss can be a little deadly with the ad. So right there, I'm looking at the lantern. I'm thinking, okay, this pack, as far as percent goes, we're looking good. It's this pack plus this guy right here, and we have our percent. So I'm line of sighting the pack to get into lantern range. They're now in lantern range. I grab threat, ask the rogue to pop the now you see what happened there. I didn't grab threat soon enough, unfortunately, and our hunter died. So I probably need to communicate a little more in that respect, and make sure that I have time where I get all my teammates to just line of sight with me, and we save the DPS for when we get them all rounded up. So right here, this lantern, again, this is gonna give us 4 stacks for the boss. 4 stacks for 2 minutes, 20% damage buff for 2 minutes. It'll help us burn through the boss, especially in Tyrannical weeks. So in fortified weeks, I think you can just try and keep your lantern buff going through this hallway and use it on the trash. It's going to be harder than the boss, but on Tyrannical weeks, it's good to get some extra stacks. So, and that extra damage. So this boss has a couple mechanics. I recommend using Lust. Some people lust this boss, some people lust the third boss. They are both they're both tough. So it's kind of what you prefer, or what your healer prefers, what they have the most trouble healing through. So you can see we pop Lust here. So his first thing right there is Castigate. He's going to put an AoE damage drain life ability essentially on one of your party members. They need to get out of the way so no one else is in the AoE, and you just need to support them, maybe off heal if you can. So you saw that mob that popped up. That mob does AoE ticking damage to everyone in the party as long as he's up. When he dies, he's going to leave that red patch. So you need to make sure that you pull him away, the boss away from the red patch after the mob dies. That will do high damage to anyone that's standing in it. So the mob, when it pops up, is high priority. Now you see these 2 swirling red patches that come along. You're going to want to avoid them. So after one passes on the outside, you'll see I move left. And then the one passes on the inside, I can move back to the right. So right there, I should have pulled back earlier. We don't want anyone in that patch. It's extremely important. So right here, we're moving left again. And then those are all the mechanics of this fight. He's going to cast Castigate. He's going to summon the mob, which you need to get down as soon as possible and make sure everyone focuses the mob. as soon as it pops up. And then the 2 red and black swirlies on the outside. You need to make sure that they you avoid them. If you get hit, I think it's either a damage debuff or a haste. I think it might be a haste debuff. So I did need to pull one more pack here. If you do the skip, we're gonna skip a mob after the 3rd boss. You need 75% before you go down. If you're not going to, if you're going to do all the mobs after the 3rd boss, then you only need, I believe it's 69%. So, but I highly recommend skipping. We have a rogue here, so we'll be able to shroud, and you'll see that in a little bit. But if you don't have a rogue, you're gonna need to invis pot past them, but that also means you won't be able to pot for the 3rd boss, so it is a trade-off. But that pack, especially on fortified weeks, this is a tyrannical week, but on fortified weeks is very, very deadly, and you'll see it coming up in a second. So we get down here, there are 5 mobs and a tormentor you're going to want to do before. So you can see here I'm checking my count. It's very important to, not miscount, because you're coming into an area where it would be very hard to get back up. So 5 mobs, if you can get them all at the same time. The one pat that's coming around, you just kind of have to wait for it. My hunter misdirected for me there, so very, very useful skill. Find a hunter that misdirects all the time to you. It makes your life as a tank so much easier. Here they do the suppression cast, which is your priority. The soul rack obviously is going to do damage, but suppression will keep your teammates from casting, which is less damage and healing for your team. So these mobs, we've seen them all before. Vestige of Doubt. Again, I was just checking percentage, making sure I didn't mess up. And then you go do the Tormentor. So this is the final Tormentor, Cold Heart. Basically, everyone's going to be slowed by 50%. You need to dodge a frontal cone, and you need to get out of swirlies on the ground. That's it. He is one of the harder ones, especially if you pull mobs into him, which happens a lot. Because he's just in a position where you can pull a couple mobs in, but overall it's just dodging stuff. So if you're good at dodging stuff, your team's good at dodging stuff, then you'll make it. So one thing you can do as a paladin, if you see someone in trouble in the frontal or they're not getting out of the way, you can slap Blessing of Freedom on them. That'll remove the 50% slow from the cold and help them get out of the way faster. So quick reaction times there could, save a teammate. You definitely don't want the teammate to get blasted into the boss. It could be a little tricky there. So, all right. So this Grand Proctor is a couple of different abilities that she does. Right here, Iron Spikes is the tank buster. You're going to want to use defensive when that happens. So you can see at first I pop my Ardent Defender to deal with it. Then Rite of Supremacy. These golden orbs are going to give you damage reduction for when she's finished channeling here. So as a tank, you probably just need 1. As a paladin, you can negate one of the casts with Divine Shield. So when it's 2 seconds left, Divine Shield, taunt. After the cast is through, make sure you get rid of Divine Shield so you don't lose aggro. And then the third ability, and you just saw it, she puts yellow, orange, sandy swirlies on the ground. Just avoid them. So that's basically it. And other than that, you get some melee hits. So plus 18 Tyrannical. You can see I take 1 ball. If you look at my health bar, I lose about half health. I highly recommend this fight. Save any empowered Word of Glories to help heal your teammates after the Rite of Supremacy cast. So Iron Spikes, right there. I used my Scales Trinket to deal with that one. You always want to have a tank thing up or a defensive up to deal with the damage from that. And Rite of Supremacy, I grabbed 1 again. Gives your weaker teammate or your teammates more options. You got more balls for more damage reduction. Endless Torment, we're just dodging again. and it's really just it's just executing those abilities over and over again. So you can see there, I'm out of defensives. Ardent Defender is not up for another 5 seconds. Kings is down for 3 minutes. I took the damage and I used my Kyrian file and I potted to get through that one. So probably wouldn't work at higher difficulties, but for this one, that was my plan for now. So with this boss, another thing, you're just coming from the second boss, so you're not going to have lust up. And again, you can either lust this boss or the second boss. This boss does a lot of damage. It's kind of up to you and your healer on what they feel comfortable with. So we always lust the second boss though. So, all right, so you're gonna do this. The tank should pick up. You can see it on my back. It's a, I don't know, something from the Drain Eye, some Exodar thing that protects you or something. It's a huge amount of damage reduction, and it is a boss mechanic for the final boss and the final gauntlet, they call it. You have to have it when she does when the boss General Call casts a certain ability. You have to use it. Everyone has to get in the circle or you will die, essentially. On the boss, basically it's so much damage and she'll kick you off the platform. Within the hallway, it's just a crap ton of damage. So we shroud this pack. So this pack has the Sentinel, a Mist Dancer, and a Grand Overseer. 3 of the toughest mobs in the dungeon all together. And it is nasty, especially on fortified weeks. So if you can, I highly recommend skipping that pack. If you don't have a rogue with Shroud, I would still recommend visiting it. Tyrannical weeks, maybe you don't need to, but fortified weeks, definitely skip. So we could just do a double pull here. I noticed we have a lot of time, so I'm not in a huge rush right here. I do them one at a time, but I should have just pulled everything on this pack. There's no reason not to. Everyone has their cooldowns up probably from skipping the other pack, and so we should have just slammed both packs right here. These Gargons are going to keep coming down. The dogs are going to keep coming down permanently, so there's no time to stop and drink. Right there is her Gloom Squall. That is when you're going to use your extra action button. You can see right above my red health bar on the bottom. It's a 30-second cooldown, so if you accidentally use it, you're not going to have it for her Gloom Squall cast, so you need to be really careful there. And then the main mechanic here is she starts at 100% health. When you get her down to 90%, she's going to move to the next section. Same thing on the next section. When you get her down to 80%, she'll move, and when you get her to 70%, she'll go to the final platform where you'll face her for the final fight of the dungeon. So right here, fortunately, we have a lantern, so pop it right away. These mobs will go down quick. This is one of the ones where you might not want to pull everything at once, because as long as you kill one mob in the lantern, it will refresh all of your stacks. So pulling them in chain will make your stacks last a little longer. So if we killed them all like right now, right, the time's ticking. But if you kill the second mob, during the last 5% when you're killing the General Call, then you're refreshing your stacks, maybe get an extra 20-30 seconds. Probably should just pull them all. On fortified weeks, could be a little tougher, so you might not want to pull everything, but so one thing to note on fortified weeks, or just some weeks in general, explosives and spitefuls, they will also give you lantern stacks if you kill the explosives or the spitefuls within the area. So something to keep in mind. It helps change your routes and gives you more stack possibly. So all right, so moving forward, right here we're killing, this is the last section for a call. When you get her down to 70%, she'll run to the final boss area. I probably could have pulled her back into the next pack, you can see there, but the Wild Spirits is down. You don't want to pull mobs out of Wild Spirits. Same thing, like when you're playing with a mage, he drops Blizzard. Try to keep the mobs in Blizzard. So the Shining Radiance, you can on these extra mobs where you don't have to negate the boss's mechanic, Gloom Squall. You can just use for standard damage reduction. Especially helpful if you have a lot of melee in your group. Just cast it when it's up as you're running through this gauntlet area. So, Chamber Sentinel, Skirmishers, they'll spawn animated weapons. Don't focus the animated weapons; they will despawn when the Skirmishers die. Again, it's frontal there. And these Hound Masters or Hunt Masters, they drop traps on the ground. If someone steps in it, it will do AoE damage to anyone else that's in it. As a tank, you can get them. But again, you're right there. Drop Shining Radiance. It's extra damage reduction. There's no reason not to. And the dogs go down quick. So yeah, this is the last room. You'll see we get 100% count right here. And then on to the boss. So we have Lust up. Everyone should have their cooldowns up. You want to make sure your healer has enough mana and pull. All right, so he's going to Call is doing Wicked Rush, which will apply a bleed to whoever he hits. So there's 2 bleeds there, and if anyone's in the way of that path, they will also get a bleed. So you want to try to spread out so extra teammates are not getting the bleed. And then right there, you saw dodge ability. There'll be red zones on the ground. You want to get out of the way, right? And then the final ability is Gloom Squall. Call will go to an area. You want to go to that area. Everyone will stack. We'll use Shining Radiance. It's damage reduction, and it'll prevent you from the knockback. If someone does not get in that, they are going to get knocked off the platform, and that's that. So highly important to get in that. And as a tank, I know fights can get chaotic, but you are the one with that thing on your back and able to activate Shining Radiance. So you have to be on top of things. You have to know you have to run directly to her, especially as a paladin. If you don't have your our horse up right there, it can be hard to get to it. So you need to pay attention, get there right away. Boss fights can be chaotic, but it's just something to keep in mind. So this fight, you go from 70% to 50%. At 50%, that is the end of the fight. Call is a boss within the first Castle Nathria raid of 9.0. So you don't really kill her. She runs to the raid, and you get to fight her eventually. So unfortunately for paladins, Hammer of Wrath is not available unless you have wings up, which is a fair bit of single target damage for us. So another reason you could potentially run Venthyr in this dungeon is just extra single target damage. Ashen Hollow allows you to cast Hammer of Wrath just like Wings does. So but this is a pretty basic fight. There's a fair amount of damage, but the majority of the damage in this fight is avoidable. So if everyone's avoiding the damage, the healer can just focus whoever gets the bleeds, then it's pretty straightforward. So overall, it's a very fun dungeon. As you can see, I had a great group of DPS and healer for this. And like I said, it's, we're a couple weeks out from 9.2. Highly recommend if you love running Mythics, start filling up your Mythic Plus list with people you want to play with. And start maybe try to get in a guild that runs more Mythics, and it could be a great job. So I actually got some IO in this one. It was a good push week this week. But yeah, thanks for watching the video, and there'll be more content in the future. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.